Very good. All right, good night. Good evening. Welcome everybody to the Board of School Directors for the School District of Springfield Township. Today is November 1st. I want to welcome everybody joining us in person and online. Why don't we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? If everyone can rise and direct their attention to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. And the mission of the School District of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community. And now we'll have the roll call. Ms. Green, if you would, please.
Thank you. Mr. Needleman?
Here.
Mrs. Lipinski? Mr. DeFranco?
Here.
Mrs. Hubley? Mrs. Green?
Here.
Mrs. Hughes?
Here.
Dr. Taratuski? Dr. Etlin? Here. Mr. Bedard?
Here.
Very good. Let's start with our announcements. The property committee met last week. We discussed primarily the school bus depot and the need for either renovating it or finding new space. I will say that we really need to find new space. Renovating it is just not going to be an option. So we're currently looking for new space. We are, he said with a smile, actively searching for a new space. We're putting out all the feelers we possibly can. And that search will continue and will update as offers come in and we've got more news to report. I know this sounds kind of like a vague report, but unfortunately, there's just nothing concrete to report at this point other than the fact that we are searching. Our policy committee report, I will turn things over to Ms. Green.
Good
evening. You would.
At a policy meeting on October 24th, present was Dr. Yannicka, Ms. Carol Green, Mr. Needleman, Ms. Carla Green, and Ms. Hubley. At the time of public comment, there were no other attendees there. The policy meeting, as a reminder, is always available for your review on the website. We're going to quickly go through this, but I wanted to highlight a few things. We are reviewing, or we reviewed the last 4 of the 600 policies. 609 investment of district funds. The solicitor and financial advisor review gives us the flexibility in how we invest district funds and what we can invest in. So language added to allow for any other new Act 10 language changes that may happen. 618 student activity funds. Funds are the responsibility of the district and flows through the business office. I'm just highlighting some of the things that came up in conversation, not in total, so please do review it yourself. 626 federal financial fiscal compliance attachments were added and identified delegation of responsibility. And 626.1 federal programs travel reimbursement, again more designation of responsibility clarified, and that ended the 600 policy review. And then we looked at 700 policies. 701 facilities planning were proposed by the PSBA language changes were proposed aligning the policy to school code. 701.1 naming rights. And we'll talk about that a little further. 702 gift grants and donations. 703 and 704 clarifying language changes also reviewed and accepted. They also were reviewed by Mr. Thorne. Use of facilities. This policy was reviewed in 2021. The language is expanded to include vaping, tobacco, etc. Policies 708, 710, 708 lending of equipment and books, and 710 use of facilities by staff. Minimal language changes to reflect our current practices. And then 716 integrated pest management. As we do not have a IPM coordinator, the language reflects the superintendent or designee in its place. And then moving right along and moving forward for first reading is 702.1 crowdfunding. It prohibits any funding such as GoFundMe or GoFundMe accounts due to the lack of district control of the collection of funds. So we're going to remove, we can receive monies from outside groups, but we will not manage those monies from the outside groups. So we're prohibiting recommendation any crowdfunding. Facilities and workplace safety. We do not have a certified workplace safety committee, but we do have a safety committee made of professional staff, building level staff, reps, support staff, led by Mr. Chinta and the Director of Human Resources. So that's our information that we received in regards to that. There were changes made to reflect district practices in regards to 706 property records and 709 building security. The changes were made to reflect the current title of Mr. Chinta and video surveillance language based on PSBA recommendation. And there will be ARs drafted in the future to address entrances into buildings. And hold on 1 minute. We also looked at 717. It's a new policy recommended by PSBA, guidelines for issued district cell phones. Administrators only have cell phones, and there we will have ARs written following the adoption by the board. And 718, service animals in schools, recommended by PSBA. Although there are no current requests, but we do need to have a policy that covers that in case there are requests for that in the future. And then we are retiring the following 700 level policies, 702.1, which is being absorbed in 702, 706.1, disposition of surplus property, realigned and replaced with AR attached. 711, capital assets not needed, was addressed in policy 601, 619, 620, 622, 701, 706. Policy 720, grants, gifts, bequests are combined in now with 702. And then 721, naming of school facilities, now combined in 701.1. There was one other to-do policy, 105.2, which is an exemption from instruction that would need to be clarified prior to the next cycle of classes in the spring. So we will address that at a later meeting date. So this concludes our policy report.
Very comprehensive. And I'll turn things over to Dr. Etlin for a report on academic affairs.
Okay, thank you. The Academic Affairs Committee met on Monday, October the 24th at 5 p.m. In attendance were Mr. Neil DeFranco, Ms. Amy Hubley, Dr. Damian Johnston, Dr. Andre McLaurin, Dr. Chuck Rittenhouse, Ms. Carla Green, Dr. Mary Jo Yannicone, Dr. Michelle Lutz, Mr. Zach Fuller, and Isha Shaw, the new student representative. Dr. Johnston shared the new curriculum guides for the elementary and middle schools, and these guides were created to provide a transparent and clear communication about the key concepts, skills, and content students will master during the academic year at each grade level from kindergarten through grade 8. Both the elementary and middle school guides contain sections on approaches on learning and monitoring growth and progress, academic needs and student supports, core curriculum that is detailed with an overview by each grade level, special area curriculums, and core curriculum resources. The middle school curriculum guide also contains a glossary of terms used at the middle school and the Bell schedule. Both guides will be translated into Spanish, Korean, Burmese, and Mandarin, and these guides will be available soon on the website in a very user-friendly format. Additionally, Dr. Johnson updated the committee on the new standards approved this summer by the Pennsylvania Department of Education for STEALS, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Environmental Literacy, and Sustainability. There is a 3-year implementation period with new state testing requirements to occur in 2025. These standards focus on 3 dimensions of science education, science and engineering practices, cross-cutting concepts and disciplinary core ideas, and the district attended a recent full-day training on these new standards and will continue to work towards implementation during the curriculum revision process. Additionally, Dr. Johnson shared focused curriculum projects for the 2022-23 year. First, in English language arts, which is being reviewed in grades 6 through 12. This review is focusing on student feedback, standardized testing and performance of students to determine areas of strengths in our program and opportunities for growth. The kindergarten to 5 English language arts revision will begin this coming January. The district will need to identify a new core resource for our elementary students as the current resource, Journeys, has been discontinued by the publisher. Math and English language arts student performance data in the district continues to be examined for the trends of the students over time and looking back to determine areas for professional learning where additional resources or support may be needed and ways in which to ensure our students are performing to their best in both of these subject areas. To examine this data, the district uses a comprehensive data warehousing solution called Linkit to analyze the data that the leadership team further interfaces with in their quest to develop a plan to strengthen student performance. The district's moving on, Dr. Lutz also during this meeting reviewed the current progress towards implementing the Equity Action Plan. A full public presentation on the first year will be done and shared in January 2023. Dr. Lutz provided highlights of this work for the first year, and these highlights included listening tour to hear directly from students, a presentation at a regional conference in the summer of 2022, and forthcoming a national conference in December of 2022 on belonging. All staff have been trained on the equity plan as of this past October. That included training on facilitating difficult conversations, and the staff were also informed on DEI resources for teachers that can be found in their Google Classroom. Dr. Lutz also provided a list of Year 2 initiatives that are on the horizon. And the meeting concluded at 6 p.m. and that concludes my report.
Thanks very much, Dr. Allen. At this time, I'll turn things over to Dr. Yannicone for the superintendent report. Dr. Yannicone.
Thank you, Mr. Needleman. I want to begin tonight with a student highlight, some great news out of our Eastern Center for Arts and Technology. Suzanne Seltzer, a Springfield Township High School senior, is the November 2022 Student of the Month at Eastern. Suzanne is being recognized for her outstanding work in Eastern's Business and Technology Professional Program. The Student of the Month Award is sponsored by Eastern's faculty, Joint Operating Committee, and the Willow Grove Rotary Club to highlight student excellence, success, and service. 10 students each year are selected for this honor from all of the school districts that are served by Eastern. Suzanne is an outstanding student at both Eastern and Springfield Township High School. At Eastern, she serves as the Skills USA school-wide secretary for their student leadership organization. And this fall, Suzanne was selected as one of 3 students nominated by Eastern for their Presidential Scholar Award. Through her Business and Technology Professional Program, she's already earned her Microsoft Office Suite certification, and she will finish up the program with 9 dual enrollment credits from Montgomery County Community College when she graduates. At Eastern's Awards Night in May, she received the Business and Technology Professional Outstanding Student in Business Software and the Straight A Award. At Springfield Township High School, she participates in soccer, stage crew, the Thespian Troop 1154, the Sustainability Club, and she's a member of the National Honor Society, no surprise. So Suzanne will be honored next Wednesday night at the annual JOC dinner at Eastern. I'll be pleased to represent the district and be able to honor Suzanne that night. We have a few athletic highlights. About 21 minutes ago, our boys soccer team started in their district final at Radnor High School. We are competing against Radnor at a very high level in the playoffs. We want to wish good luck tonight to our boys soccer team. We also want to wish good luck to our boys football team, which on Saturday night will be playing in the semifinals at Pope John Paul High School. And we also want to wish our boys and girls cross-country runners, we have 3 runners who qualified to participate in the state championship this weekend. So we have some good things happening in fall athletics. We're going to bring all of our fall athletes who qualified in league, district, and state championships at our next board meeting on the 15th. Also wanted to share a little bit about professional development. On Monday, in addition to having our Halloween parades and recognition for students in the morning, in the afternoon, our school staff engaged in professional learning that was focused on student achievement data and strategies for growth. Next Tuesday, November 8th, we'll be hosting a full day of professional development focused on one of our district themes, authentic learning. I want to thank Dr. Johnston, our building leaders, and our staff for their dedication to providing the time and attention to both the performance of our students on standardized measures, as well as our commitment to creating and sustaining engaging, relevant experiences through our curriculum every day in authentic learning. Looking ahead to the next 2 weekends, we have 2 fall plays coming up. The middle school will host their fall play, which is titled Insights, a collection of monologues and scenes this weekend. Next weekend, the high school will host their fall play, which is called Murder in the Air, H-E-I-R, which is an interactive murder mystery. Information on both plays can be obtained through the principal's weekly newsletters or by calling either of the offices, the middle school or high school office. Tickets are on sale, and we're hoping to have a great showing by the community at these 2 events. And finally, next Friday is Veterans Day, November 11th. We have honorees occurring in each of our 4 school buildings next Friday. Enfield is going to honor the family members who are veterans or active duty members of our students and staff by assembling a slide presentation that the students will contribute to that'll be viewed during morning meeting. At Erdenheim, local veterans have been invited to attend a breakfast and enjoy performances by our Erdenheim band and chorus. And they're also going to participate in a heroes parade. They'll also meet with students for a Q&A, and each veteran will receive appreciation cards written by our students this week. The middle school is going to host a luncheon to which first responders and veterans have been invited. A short assembly with a keynote address will follow, and then our veterans will be honored publicly at an assembly. And finally, at the high school, we're going to host a breakfast for our first responders and veterans. They're going to be able to have breakfast at the high school and then lunch at the middle school. And all of our students will be watching a video that's focused on veteran and first responder contributions to our community. They'll view that in their homerooms. So we're very excited for the next few weeks, and hope you can join us. If you're able, we'd be happy to have you. And that concludes my report.
Thanks very much, Dr. Yannicone. That's such good news. It's just great. At this time, we'll take public comment on agenda items. I do want to remind our folks in the audience who are present and anyone joining us online that we are limiting comments to 3 minutes. And if you would, please tell us where you live in the township. I don't see anyone present in person who has signed up. If anyone does want to speak who is joining us online, please raise your hand and you'll be called on and the floor is yours.
And Mr. Needleman, I am online, so I am going to monitor for you.
Thank you.
Our attendee list here. We're going to give everybody just a minute to raise their hand if they have any questions. If they have any comments for the board. No hands are raised at this time, Mr. Needleman.
Very good. We will move right along then. We've got our next item is personnel and HR contracts. This item, the Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment: certified personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, extra pay for extra responsibilities, 2022 to 2023, and conference attendance workshops. Do I hear a motion? And a second? Second. Are there any comments or questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Needleman?
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco?
Aye.
Mrs. Green? Aye. Mrs. Hughes. Dr. Etlin. Aye. Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
Very good. Our next item is the referral program. The Board of School Directors approves the proposed SDST referral program as attached to support the recruitment of support staff positions in specific departments effective November 2nd, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Do I hear a motion? In a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Mrs. Green.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Dr. Etlin. Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
Our next item is the high school band overnight trip. The Board of School Directors approves the high school band and chorus to attend performance and workshop opportunities in Walt Disney World resorts from April 20, 2023 through April 24, 2023. Do I have a motion? From the board?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If we, I love this trip. Feels like something that every band should do. How does the funding for the trip work?
Dr. Yannicka, can I turn that question over to you?
Sure. There are a variety of fundraisers to help the students to pay for the trip, and anything that is not covered through those fundraising efforts, the families support. All right, Dr. Johnson, have I missed anything? Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks for that additional detail.
Any other comments or questions? No? Ms. Green?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Mrs. Green. Aye. Mrs. Hughes. Dr. Etlin. Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
Very good. Our next item are the 600 level policies Ms. Green mentioned before, recommended for changes. These policies are 609, 618, 626, 626.1. The Board of School Directors approves the first reading of the 600 policies I just read off with changes. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I think it would be valuable if Ms. Green could recap her notes from, I'm just kidding, by the way, I'm just kidding. Because Ms. Green, your recap was so comprehensive. I don't need any additional detail. It's so easy when you're remote to do that.
And nothing more need be said. Are there any other comments or questions? All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second. I believe I heard that already. Ms. Green, please.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco. Mrs. Green.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Dr. Etlin. Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
Our next item are the 700 level policies with minimal language changes. The Board of School Directors approves the first reading of the following 700 level policies with minimal language changes. These are 701, 701.1, 702, 703, 704, 707, 708, 710, and 716. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Anybody but you? No, I'm just kidding, of course. Do I have a motion? Ms. Green, please.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Mrs. Green.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin.
Aye.
Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
All right, now these are our 700 level policies with substantive changes. The Board of School Directors approves the first reading of the following 700 level policies with substantive changes. And again, these are 702.1 having to do with crowdfunding, 705, 706, and 709. Are there any comments or questions from the board? No?
Motion.
And a second? Thank you. Ms. Green?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Mrs. Green.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin.
Aye.
Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
Next are the 700 level policies to be retired. The Board of School Directors approves the following retirement of these 700 level policies: 702.1, 706.1, 711, 720, and 721. Are there any comments or questions? None? Do I have a motion? And a second? Ms. Green?
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Mrs. Green.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes. Dr. Etlin. Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
All right. The Board of School Directors. Next is our 700 level policies that are new. The Board of School Directors approves the first reading of the following 700 level new policies. This is 717 and 718 dealing with cellular, it's easy for me to say, cellular telephone, cell phone, and service animals in schools. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
And I missed the policy committee where this was discussed, but I was curious in the service animal, why the specificity of the horse? And I'm not saying that facetiously, but just it's why it's not open to all sort of like a variety of service animals, and it's just focused on a dog and a horse.
What I will say is that PSBA provides us the guidance, and that any service animal, whether it's a small miniature horse or a dog, they're the most common service animals. These are distinguishable, and it's in the policy language, from emotional support animals, which may be a broader group of animals. So I think that's why it's specific. I also suspect that there's a greater deal of facilitation and coordination that has to occur with some of those larger animals.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. I didn't realize that those were the most popular. I just had some questions which I can bring to the next policy committee about making it more broad.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
If I could just add to your comments, Dr. Yannicone. Ms. Hughes, I shared some of that concern with you. What I found in the policy is that there's a bit of discretion in terms of what happens on the ground under the circumstances, as far as administrators go, in terms of enforcing what animals can do, what and how folks can interact with them. I don't want to misspeak if I said anything.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So that level of discretion gave me a bit more comfort, and I think should give everyone else a bit more comfort.
Great. I'm fine to move forward with first reading though. Just wanted
very good
context. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Do I have a motion? And a second? Very good, Ms. Green.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Mrs. Green.
Aye.
Mrs. Hughes.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
All right, very good. Now we'll come to our period for public comment on non-agenda items. Now, again, I'll just remind everyone, we do have a 3-minute limit, and anyone who wishes to speak, please let us know where you live in the township, and off you go. I don't see anyone signed up in person. Mr. Bedard, I'll look to you to see if anyone has a hand raised online and wishes to speak.
We do have a hand raised online from Lee Aberley, and Mr. and Ms. Aberley, if I just remind you, 3 minutes for comment, and if you could just let us know where you live in the township, and we'll give everyone else a minute to decide if they want to raise their hands.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
This is really just a minor comment. I just wanted to say a thanks to Dr. Yannicone and Dr. Van Voren for hosting 2 parent information sessions last week. I attended both. They were excellent. Very different. One was the parent advisory session hosted by Dr. Yannicone, and one was the parents of or caregivers of children with special ed program hosted by Dr. Van Voren. The second one was in person, which was great. And I just really appreciate the school administration giving up their time to host those events. The second event hosted by Dr. Van Voren had a lot of teaching staff, school administrators, building principals in person. And so it was just really great to see that collection and bringing together of the community. So I just personally wanted to say I really appreciated the time and effort that went into that organisation. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It was great to hear. And Dr. Van Voorn's on this call as well, obviously, Dr. Yannicka. I don't see any other hands.
And again, seeing no one in person, we'll move to our future board meeting dates. Our next regular board meeting is Tuesday, November 15th, which will also be a hybrid meeting. And we will have a regular board meeting on December 6th, 2022, which will also be a hybrid. All for anyone who wants to attend in person, of course, they'll be in the Fries Memorial Library. And that'll do it for our meeting. I want to open things up to any, I've missed something, haven't I? Excuse me, future committee meeting dates. I forgot one of the most important parts.
Finance committee coming up Thursday. Let's get into it.
As Mr. Bedard said, we have a finance committee meeting on Thursday, November 3rd at 8 a.m. The link for that, I think, is on the website.
It is.
Very good.
The agenda is posted on board docs.
And the agenda is posted on board docs. Thank you for the reminder, Dr. Yannicka. So before we adjourn the meeting, I'll follow Mr. Bedard's lead and ask if any member of the board wishes to make a comment, say anything.
I do. I had the pleasure of attending the International Night Dinner, and it was an excellent event with a variety of different foods. It was great to see, of course, our superintendent and administrative staff and principals and teachers and parents all together, and students. I sat at the table with some of the students and was able to taste some of the food that was there and enjoy some of the food that was there. So I just really wanted to highlight that was a really nice job. And Mr. Thompson, the challenge is on.
Very good. Does anyone else wish to make a comment? All right, very good. I think we can then adjourn. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.